guess my message to people who are currently employed at any wirehouse is that if you feel like it could be easier to do business somewhere else, if you feel like having more space would help you enable you to be more successful, you're totally right. Don't let go of that feeling. That is my message. If something seems completely nonsensical and frustrating, and you get more of that than you get of help, let that thought fester, grow into that thought, allow it to inform your actions, allow it to energize your activities, because it's all totally true.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. Today we have one of my favorite clients ever, Jake McLean, on the podcast. Him and his partner, John Thornton, were a $245 million asset under management Wells Fargo advisor team when we first started working together. After an exhaustive search, they wound up moving their firm to the Linsco W-2 model of LPL Financial, under the name Capitum Wealth Management. I just wanted to talk today. I think Jake has a really great story in terms of just what led them to their which led them to their departure from Wells Fargo. Just to talk about what their due diligence process looked like, and then also what life after their transition has looked like at LPL. Jake, I really appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. I know I've been promising to come on for a full year, and I finally have enough open time in my schedule to oblige. So here we are.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Jake. If you don't mind just telling the audience a little bit, how did you get started in the business?
Oh, this is a funny story. I don't know if I've ever even told you this one, Corey. So how I got started in the business was when I was when I was 17 years old, I started training and competing in a sport called mixed martial arts. And a lot of people know what that is now. Not a lot of people knew what it was in 2007 when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
So I was into it way before it got super big. And part of the way that I made money in college, I went to UVA, University of Virginia. I guess you have a national audience, so I should probably say that. One of the ways I made money was I taught private lessons to people that didn't necessarily want to go be in the rough and tumble fighter-centric classes. And one of the guys I met was a financial advisor at Wells Fargo, which is funny because I didn't start my career at Wells Fargo, but I did end up there after a period of years. And we just ended up talking. I'd always been interested in investments, and for 2 years we struck up what was originally a professional relationship where I taught him all sorts of aspects of mixed martial arts in a controlled setting, and then we talked about a lot of other things too. So by the time I was 20 years old, he had let me come in for like a winter internship during a break from college, and I said, "Yeah, this is what I want to do." So I'd always been interested in investments, always been interested in money. Felt like I had a pretty good predilection for being able to talk to people. I had in college, I was studying science actually, and I thought I was going to go into education. And then I realized a few years ago, I did end up in education, just financial education, not scientific education. So I think a lot of what might be viewed as disparate parts of my life kind of coalesced into becoming a financial advisor. But that's how I got started, and that's probably not an uncommon story that people take a circuitous path to this profession. I don't know that I've ever met anyone who had the same story about how they got here. But once you get here and if you make it, it's very rewarding, and I'm happy with every aspect of my professional life and how it allows me to have so much of a personal life as well. So got here through mixed martial arts, if you'll believe it or not.
That's awesome. I think we talked about this in the past, Jake, but
Okay.
I'm a black belt myself, but I think you could
Well,
still kick my butt. I think you have more
well,
experience with it.
I'm glad you're on that side of the internet then, so that we don't have to test that in physical space.
Nice. Um, so how long were you and John at Wells Fargo prior to leaving?
Yeah, he was there from 2010 until 2023. I was there from 2017 until 2023, and we partnered up at the end of 2020. So we have been together for 4 years now, and so he had a pretty long tenure there, 13 years. He had come. He started back in the 80s, so he's like everybody that started in the 80s. He's got some people on his resume that aren't around anymore, and some that are still around. So some
Yeah.
employers, I mean. So we started, been there for a while, enough to understand, I think, really understand not just the place where Wells Fargo is today, but also where it came from. That tenure, we've been through quite a few different software revamping that they put through, and obviously restructuring. And Wells Fargo is still going through that. Made it a pretty easy place to leave from, actually, which I think assisted in our transition. And we might get into our transition later, but
Yeah.
if anybody out there is wondering if you're at Wells Fargo, is it hard to leave? My answer is no. And I think we really outperformed expectations leaving. And we didn't feel like people had as much of a connection to that firm as some of the other people I've talked to that came from other institutions. And part of that is probably because Wells Fargo's changed so much in a short amount of time,
Yeah.
and disbanded a lot of their programs, disbanded some of their entire departments on the private bank side. So perhaps that was also fortuitous for us that we left at a time where there was a lot of upheaval, but it was pretty easy. It was a pretty easy transition, not just getting here, but coming from there. And obviously really happy about it. But we've been there for a while, and uh, I feel like we got a good dose of the culture and technology that they use, and the missives that they give to advisors and how they want them to perform for their clients. So I feel like we got a good handle on that.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely talk more about the transition later because I know you wound up bringing a lot more than you expected, and I just want to dig into why
Not
you.
more than I expected, but more than the recruiters, at LPL told us that they thought we would bring. So I was happy about that. I expected to grow when I got here, or I wouldn't have made the move, right?
Yeah,
So, and I'm happy to, you kind of said something funny in the beginning. You said we were a $245 million team at at Wells Fargo, and I actually think today I checked our practice metrics, including all of our advisory 401k plans. We're back at that number today.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it took us 14 months to get back to that number.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you. Which is really like, I don't know how common that is because I don't get to compare myself to other people, but the people who are, our managers, they think we're doing a good job. So I guess that's good enough.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I definitely want to dig into that a ton later. I know you already mentioned, some of the things that were, real frustrations, technology changes, some issues with, some of the private bankers. Can you just kind of walk through when it some of the things that happened that just made you and John, want to like seriously have a conversation with someone like myself?
Yeah. So I try to be pretty positive in all of my interactions with people because I think that positivity certainly breeds more success than negativity, but it's pretty hard to talk about some of these legacy firms without an air of negativity, and they've done that to themselves. Like that's not an industry secret, right? Like if you're an employee there, but I guess my message to people who are currently employed at any wirehouse is that if you feel like it could be easier to do business somewhere else, if you feel like having more space would help you enable you to be more successful, you're totally right. Don't let go of that feeling. That is my message. If something seems completely nonsensical and frustrating, and you get more of that than you get of help and assistance and support because these legacy firms are telling you we'll pay you 40 cents on the dollar because of all the systems that we're giving you, and if you ever feel like that's not a good transaction, you're right. Don't let don't let that thought evaporate from your head when you go to sleep tonight. Let that thought fester, grow into that thought, allow it to inform your actions, allow it to energize your activities, because it's all totally true. And I can speak for sure about Wells Fargo, but the frustrations I don't think are unique to that place. But what we have to understand is that when you work for a company and you're an employee of a company, and their job is to make sure that their brand grows, that is their marker of success, not how individual advisors do, but how their brand grows. And they're going to force everyone to conform to what I consider the lowest common denominator. And if you feel like that's perfect for you, I advise you not to make a move. And if you feel like you dream of doing more, you have to go. You have to. You have to go to a place where the avenues are open. You have to go to a place where you're an owner, not an employee. And I don't mean that, like it's funny that we say that with me being on the Linsco channel where I'm technically a W-2 employee, but we are owners of our book of business. That's part of our contract. And when I say owner, what I mean is nobody is going to hear, none of my clients are going to hear from anybody but me. They're not going to hear from our compliance supervisor. They're not going to hear from another person at the bank calling them. I am the go-to, and they view me as the owner. I'm compensated as if I'm the owner, and I have future privileges as if I'm the owner. And of course, we have that pretty easy transition into the 1099 model if we want to do that, which it's certainly in the books for me at 34 years of age. I will end up there at some point in time, but we did think the structure was helpful. So my positive message is if you are frustrated often and you think this could be easier, it should be easier, man, hold on to that and let that energize your activity. Let that consume you and let that drive your passion for finding a new place. And there's a lot of options out there. I mean, we did do our due diligence. And when we selected from the 6 different places that we were talking to, we didn't choose who we thought was, good and all the other 5 were bad. We just chose the best out of good 6 good options, right? And maybe I'm rambling a little bit, but because you wanted me to talk about individual frustrations there. But
No, it's fine.
if you're listening to this and you're listening to me, 10 things already popped into your head, right? Like if you're an advisor, you went, oh yeah, that one time they sent me that notice that made no sense. I've got all those stories too, especially about how difficult it was to get and maintain discretion in client accounts, how difficult it was to get seminars approved, to get help with our marketing, and how restrictive all those things were. Those are the individual topics that certainly are easy to contrast to an independent place where I say contrast because there is no comparison. You're actually allowed to do those things here as opposed to it being on paper that you're allowed to do it, but it being completely untenable in real life application. So those are some of the specific things, the discretion, ability to market the way we want, ability to do client events, ability to ensure that our branding is what we want. All of those things sound small, but they certainly reinvigorated us as a practice and made us a lot prouder of what we're offering to our clients because it's our vision now instead of that corporate brand vision that I talked about before. If you ever feel like you don't, if you ever feel like you could do more with your own ideas than you can regurgitating the ideas of a conglomerate, come on over to the other side. We'll welcome you.
Yeah, I love what you said in the beginning in terms of just there being so many options out there today. And, you know, basically you have the ability to define your own definition of independence now. So we could talk about this a
Yeah.
little bit, but when we first started talking and going through this process together, independence was really the only thing, classic independence was the only thing that we were really considering, where
Yeah.
you go out, you take down the office space, you build your brand, you build your website, your brochures, your business cards, kind of all of those different things. And over time, as I learned that maybe, and I don't want to speak for John, but maybe John's threshold was a little lower for doing some of those things himself. I think you guys kind of saw some things in between what everyone kind of boxes the W-2 world as and what everyone boxes the independent world as, and kind of found out there's a bunch of things in the middle where you can still be a W-2 and benefits are taken care of for you. Office space is taken care of for you. HR is taken care of for you. So you're not being both a financial advisor and also an HR team managing all of your staff as well. So I always tell financial advisors, don't let anyone else define what independence is for you. I mean, inside of a lot of W-2 channels as well, you can do the branding, you can do the blogging, you can bring on other staff, you have flexibility to do those things and kind of have your cake and eat it too if pure independence is a step too far for you.
Sure. Independence, and I've thought about this, and I'm not certain that I have an articulate response for it yet, but I'll try. I think independence can be defined by the presence of 2 factors, identity and responsibility. And what I mean by that is if you can have an individual or a or a brand identity and the ability to market it and to present it to your clients, that is probably the largest differentiator. And if you think that's not a big deal, then you can go ask why Nike spends $1 billion a year on branding. Maybe not a billion, but you know what I mean. Branding is so important, especially if you have aspirations of growth. And the second is responsibility. Everyone knows the Spider-Man quote, right? With great power comes great responsibility. But what I mean by that is you really do get to claim the responsibility for what you do. At at other places, at legacy wirehouses, they don't trust you. So they're not going to let you be responsible. Even if you are a responsible candidate, they're not going to let it happen. Here, I will lose if I'm irresponsible. My brand will suffer, my clients will suffer, I will suffer. And for lack of a better word, independent places will allow you to be responsible. And I like that. I am empowered by responsibility. I have my identity as a brand, I have my identity as an advisor, and I'm comfortable taking on a lot more responsibility in my seminars, in the way I interact with the public, in the way that I interact with my clients, because I know I'm going to treat that responsibility with prudent care. And independent firms think that you are much more likely to protect yourself and act responsibly than you are to protect a firm and act responsibly. So that trust is just the cornerstone of what they trust you to do the right thing because you trust yourself to do the right thing. So to me, and notice I didn't talk about pay, I didn't talk about pay structure, and I didn't talk about office space or any of those things, but they're all related. And if you can come to an agreement with that employee channel, like we did with Linsco, we actually chose our own office space, which is funny. We found it and we said, "Hey, is this good?" And they said, "Yeah," and we worked through it. Um, if you can come up with a solution where a lot of what your identity represents is also aligning with what they'll allow you to do from a W-2 model, then it's perfect. Your benefits are taken care of, obviously better than we could have gotten on the street. Payroll is pretty easy to do. These are all things that may not be completely unlearnable. Like we could learn how to do these things, but during our transition, when you all are always nagged by that presence of doubt, which is irrational, but it's there anyway, you want to focus on your transition. You want to focus on being able to call and contact and market to people. And we were really happy during the transition that that was not our primary focus. It was our only focus, right? We didn't have to worry about the other things. And I think it's a great way to focus on what's most important to an advisory practice, which is the acquisition of, retention of, and pleasing of clients, right? So
Yeah.
we were able to do that, and we felt like it was a really good trade for us being able to have almost exactly what we wanted from a benefits, payroll, real estate standpoint, and being able to focus on what's really meaningful. So yeah, I mean, as long as you have the ability to express your identity and a place that trusts you to act responsibly, which you could totally notice by the amount of times you hear yes rather than you hear no, then that's independence.
I love it. I love that. I love that definition. I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think independence is a place. I hear clients all the time. They say, "Corey, I've been doing this for 20 years. I just want to be left alone to do what's right for my clients." And
Responsibility.
any firm and that allows you to do that, in my opinion, is an advisor's definition of independence.
Yeah.
There's different silos and different spectrum of independence, but I think that's independence at the end of the day.
Hey, I haven't copyrighted that definition yet, so you can take it without paying me if you really, really like it. That's
All
the
right.
good news, is I
Hey,
haven't made it to the U.S. Patent Office yet.
I appreciate it. I appreciate
No
it.
problem.
So, um, I think something that is, very common with your transition inside of the wirehouse. You have a senior 40-year-old veteran financial advisor,
Yeah.
John, and then you have a younger financial advisor, you. And through the process, you know, especially with complex teams, the more people, everyone has different wants, needs, long-term goals. And just kind of going through the process when we were looking at different firms, independence was something that really excited you. The
Yeah.
flexibility to market and brand and recruit and acquire practices and all of the different ways that you could kind of communicate differently with your clients. And While those things were important to John, it just seemed like John wanted something a little bit more turnkey. And this is something that happens quite a bit in the industry where a multi-channel firm could potentially allow a team like yours to kind of have their cake and eat it too. You know,
Yeah.
the older financial advisor that maybe doesn't have as much of a timeline, there's maybe more risk than reward to go independent, as they may only have an 8 or less year timeline left in the business. They could potentially have the ability to make an easy leap to an employee channel where they still get a lot of flexibility that, you know, classic independence gives to you. And then down the road, when you're running the business 100% yourself, Jake, you have the ability to make the move to the independent channel where you initially wanted to be yourself. And the benefit with a lot of these firms is that's a pretty seamless transition. There's not really repapering, there's not client disruption, there's not disruption on your end. So it's just a really easy shift under the same kind of LPL or any other firm's umbrella, to help make multiple people happy and make the transition as easy as possible for everybody. Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non-biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus, it costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it.
So you hit a couple different topics, and I want to try to respond to them in chronological order, but I may mess that up. So the first thing you had talked about was how this shift to independence is helpful for multi-generational teams. And I will explain why I think that's accurate. And that's accurate because no matter the age or, position a person occupies in a business, everybody wants smooth progression. That's what success is, smooth progression. But the difference is which part of the ramp are you on? Are you on the on ramp or are you on the off ramp? Are you scaling up or are you scaling back? Now, as a younger advisor, I'm scaling up. I want to grow. I want to retain clients. I want to market and expand my business. I obviously want to probably grow my AUM by streamlining the book. I want to make sure that the discretion and the types of accounts that we manage are very, very well situated, and it takes up a smaller percentage of my time than it used to because we're streamlined. That's my on-ramp progression. I want that to be smooth. Independence offers that. An older advisor who's looking for a very smooth succession plan is on the off ramp, and what they want is very few hooks in them from a company, or they don't want to be on the hook for deferred comp that they have to sit out for years in order to actually earn. They don't want to be on the hook for, paybacks on notes that wirehouses put in to keep you there. They don't want to have a company telling them these are the terms of our succession and you can't negotiate that, right? Independence is identity and responsibility. They trust us to identify our own succession plan and that we're responsible enough to carry it out. We get to negotiate that. That's between me and that advisor. It's not between me and somebody sitting in San Diego or Charlotte or Boston or St. Louis. So because we both want a similar trajectory, which is smooth progression, we're just going in different directions. I'm on the on ramp, he's on the off ramp, but that acceleration through each one is smoother and independent. So that's why I think it appeals to multi-generational teams, because we both get what we want, even if there's some of the topics are different, and we get them with a lot more responsibility and autonomy on our side. So that's the first thing that you asked, about multi-generational teams. And of course, that is a good segue into the other thing that you talked about, which was like being able to move vertically in the channels. Like, let's say we start in the W2 channel. It does make sense that, by the time my business, Capitum Wealth Management, potentially moves to like, a hybrid model or maybe even an RIA in the future, someone who's been on for 40 years in a certain arrangement, he might not want to be a part of that. Probably chances are he doesn't really want to be a part of that transition, which I agree is still easier than it sounds like. The repapering, making sure that custodianship is all there. That's fine, but when you're scaling back, that's not necessarily when you want your workload to be a larger constituent of your life than it used to be. And I totally respect that. And we have the ability to separate and define those roles here. So we do have that progression route mapped out, but we get to choose who is in it and who isn't. So I know you had another question hidden within those things that you asked, and I want to make sure I'm answering them all. So we had talked about why it's good for multi-generational teams, and then we had also talked about the vertical progression, but I do believe I'm missing an answer to one of the things that you had asked me.
I don't remember. I don't
Oh,
remember.
well then we're in the same boat.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. So let's talk about the transition a little bit. I mean, I hear all the time, Corey, if I knew that I could move my practice from point A to point B and bring the
Would have done a long
lion's
time
share
ago.
of my business, I would already be gone already.
Yeah.
And, I remember a text message from you. I followed up with you, and I've told you this whole time, you know, you're going to bring north of 75% of your assets. I showed you the studies. I talked to you about the experience, and you texted me and said, Corey, you were 100% right about that. And I never had a doubt in my head, but you know, why did you potentially have, a doubt in yours? Like, over the years, have you just heard like negative, things about asset retention? I mean, I know I hear from financial advisors all the time that branch managers are telling them, you need the brand, you need the support structure in order for clients to feel comfortable. I mean, can you talk about your experience a little bit?
Yeah, and I can answer your question in a way that I don't think you want me to answer it, which is why do I have doubt? And my very literal answer for that is it's obviously an evolutionary mechanism that kept us stuck within herd structure so we would survive, like predators, right? That's why we have doubt.
Yeah.
And modern society brain has not evolved to get out of that hunter-gatherer brain because we haven't had enough generations of brain chemistry evolution in order to get it. Society has evolved much faster than brain biology has. So that's why we have doubt. And the whole reason I bring that up is because when you hear it phrased that way, you go, why do I have a 10,000-year-old mentality in the modern age? And you shouldn't. You shouldn't have it. We have agriculture, we have machines. We don't need to be worried about the saber-toothed tigers that are no longer extant, right? They're gone. They don't live here anymore. Those saber-tooth tigers are fake. Everything that you've heard about why you should be nervous to continue doing what you're doing just in a place where it's better is fake. That's the first thing that I'll tell you. Now, so I had the doubt because my brain works unfortunately the exact same way other human brains does, and we have irrational thoughts that consume us and allow us to be fearful of situations that are not going to come to pass. But I have a rule in life. And you know what my rule is? I've come up with this rule. I don't know if it's good, but it's worked so far. And that's if three different people that I respect who don't know each other all recommend me to do the same thing or tell me the same thing, I'm going to listen to it. If I hear from three people who've never talked before that I should read this book, I will read that book and they're never wrong. You and two other people who never talk said, Jake, you will be good in independence. You will be good at it. You'll do way better than you think. You told me, a wholesaler who had no skin in the game told me, and so another guy who probably did have some skin in the game on me, performing poorly actually told me that. And I said, it's time for me to believe what other people see about me because they have a clearer view of my activities than I do. And more importantly, other people always are better at knowing how you appear to other people than you are, right? So what's my job? My job is to uh, present myself to other people. If you're an advisor who's not listening to what other people think of you, you're not going to do very well, right? So I said, I'm going to believe what the people who all independently have told me, and I'm going to trust in the process and I'm going to do it. Now, that sounds so simple, right? I know it's hard to convince your brain to do it, but if anybody thinks that's an intriguing thought, adopt that philosophy that if three people tell you something and you respect them, do it. That's what you should do. So I have the doubts, but when I tell you they lasted for about 6 hours, maybe not. Maybe they lasted until like the third phone call that I made on the day that the day that I transitioned. Now, of course, I stacked those phone calls in order of people I knew liked me the most, right? Like that happens. And I was just excited, and people could hear it, and probably people listening to this can hear it a year and 2 months later. I was excited about having an identity. I was excited about having the responsibility that I'd craved for so long. And if those things apply to you, if they describe you the way they describe me, everybody you talk to about your transition will hear it, they will believe it, they will respect it, and they will reward it, right? I mean, that's it. If they go, wow, this guy who's already doing a good job for me is now more excited, more involved, more responsible, more eager to please me, they're going to come with you. But you have to believe that about yourself. There's no way to fake it. There's no way to fake it in this industry. And I really believe that. And people can tell. And I was excited, and that helped. That really helped, you know, um, that helped dissolve the doubt. It really did. And within a few phone calls, I was there, and never looked back. Really didn't. On January 17th, I think, or January 18th, we transitioned, and by 12 p.m. on January 18th, I was fine. So, a few hours later.
I love it.
So,
I
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's too much, but that's really the truth.
No, I love it. I appreciate it. You know, humans don't like change. They just don't. And I think it's extremely important to help your clients understand over time, which I'm sure you did, that Wells Fargo's the kitchen. I mean, you're the chef that is, putting all the awesome salute things and solutions on the table, and that, your other firm is just another kitchen. You're the special one that's making things happen. And most clients, it is so much less work to fill out 10 pieces of paper than to start over with a brand new financial advisor again that they've built 10, 15, 20 years of rapport with. I mean, it's so much easier for them to make a move from a change standpoint than build all of that trust all over again. So if you're doing the right things for your clients, I've just seen it time and time again. It really is the easy thing for them to
It
say.
is. And I'll explain. Like, here's something that I think about a lot. And it's if your clients were only with you because Merrill Lynch is attached to your name or Wells Fargo is attached to your name, they're not your clients. They just haven't left yet.
Yeah,
And when you transition, you didn't lose a client. You just postponed that ACAT, or you accelerated that ACAT. It was coming anyway.
yeah,
It really was. There's like a dumb saying, but I think it's true. You never lose a true friend. You're not going to lose a true client that trusts you and values your advice and has seen the fruits of your labor. You're never going to lose that person because the first thing they'll do is go, I need to stay with the person that I trust instead of be reassigned in the nether realm of whoever the other advisor is. And I will tell you, I had people call me before I could reach out to them. And I won't sugarcoat it. I had two people that I expected to come with me that didn't. Two.
yeah.
And I say yet because I'm still in contact with those people, and there are some like life events that happen. And I had a lot of people that over the last 6 months, which was 6 months after my departure, they told me, yeah, I really do, but I want to see how the new guy does because they were, like you said, nervous about the change. They're all here now. They all saw
Yeah.
the new guy. They all came with me. They said there's just a difference. But look, this is the best opportunity for anybody listening to this. If you're an advisor and you go, man, I think that my clients do have an attachment to my firm. That is your opportunity to just completely revamp what you're doing and make yourself better than any firm. And it's not hard. It's not hard to be better than the bare minimum that Wells Fargo offers. It's not hard to be better than the bare minimum that Merrill Lynch and Davenport offer. It's not hard. You just go, what is every other advisor not doing? I'm gonna do it. And believe me, there's a grab bag of unlimited options on what other people aren't doing. So if you're nervous about that, if you think they're only with me because of X, that's your that's your call to arms. Pick up the slack and do something. You can fix this in 3 months. I promise. You can touch your clients more. You can call them more. You can offer them new ideas. You can call them about important things in their life. You can call them about nothing. You can be involved in their hobbies. You can be involved in their interests. You can show them that you care about them as a person and that their money factors are important to you, but not the entirety of your relationship. You'll be fine. And you should be doing that anyway. But if you're nervous at all that you're not, great. Call to action. Let's do it now. With nothing stopping you.
So I know you guys had a massively successful transition. I mean, how did you articulate that to clients when you picked up the phone the first couple times? Like, what did you say to clients, and what were their
Um,
reactions?
a lot of what I'm saying right now. I mean, doesn't this kind of sound like I'm soliciting you to work with me in the future a little bit? I mean, it's like I'm not saying, hey, can I have your business? But I don't ever ask that. I
Yeah.
say I want to earn it, and the reason I want to earn it is because I'm willing to do these things for you. And not willing, I'm excited about doing these things for you. So I think it's kind of hard for me to get out of that mode because I am excited about it. But we'll go back to that identity and responsibility definition that I had. That's how I explained it to clients. Day one, July 18th of last year, when I called people, I sent out a mass email originally, like that morning, and then I called everybody on the list. And I said, I have exciting news to share. I didn't say I left. I didn't say I started something new. I said I have exciting news to share. And my exciting news was I am realizing my dream of being able to serve you in the best possible capacity by having an identity as an independent advisor and having new responsibilities that I'm trusted with because you've trusted me. And now I want to be somewhere that respects what I've done for you as much as you respect what I've done for you. And I also said, look, if this isn't exciting to you, then I want you to tell me what's causing apprehension and I want to solve it for you over the next few months. That's it. If there's a place that I could improve, I want to hear about it because if not, I don't want to live in an echo chamber. So that's how I explain it to people is I've got this exciting new opportunity. I get to realize a dream, and that dream exists because of because of you, because of the trust you put into me. And I don't want to continue the status quo. I want to make things better for you, and I'm willing to prove it to you about how I'm going to do that. Now, and if people ask, what can you do differently? Look, anywhere you go that's independent and you have access to way more research and a much more sophisticated tech stack and independent financial planning software and the ability to communicate in a really unfettered way. All of those are individual topics that you can discuss that might be of varying importance to the clients. But most important is saying, I believe in myself and I'm not taking a risk. I'm taking on a responsibility that I know I will fulfill. And that's the message that I had to clients. And I really think they could feel it. And I'm hoping you can feel it when I talk to you about this.
Yeah.
And that's it. I said, I believe in myself and I believe I will do a great job for you. And if you don't 100% believe that, give me 3 months to prove it to you. Give me 3 months. And everyone did, and they're still here. We
That's
haven't lost we haven't lost one ACAT, not one ACAT in the last 14 months either. I know that's not that amazing, but I'm happy about it. I'm more happy about that than getting new ones.
That's great. And I love how you made it simple. I think a lot of financial advisors, they wind up, building this like 20-minute speech in terms of like why they should make the transition. And I think a lot of financial advisors, they forget that these people are already trusting them to make trusting you to make decisions on their best
Right.
interests already anyway.
Yeah, and I think the worst thing you can do is talk about the firm. I think it because you're saying, hey, look, like I have this, and we did like, a couple people did need to hear about who LPL was because it's not a name that's like out there that much. So we did for a few of the people talk about the firm, but I think people interpret it as if you're talking about the firm, you kind of are nervous and you need that support. And the way I like to talk about people is I have all the support I need already from you. We have a structure behind us that helps us with compliance and is a large custodian of assets, but we chose them specifically because they won't get between my relationship with you, not because of any of the other factors. And I mean, you got to have that. I mean, maybe the first three calls that was a little bit of acting on the confidence, but by the fourth call it wasn't. I really believed it, and I still believe it to this day. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say that.
No, it's fine. And I know a lot of financial advisors always want to reach out to their top clients that they have the best relationships with first. Sometimes I recommend financial advisors maybe reaching out to a few clients first that maybe they're okay with losing with, just to get their story down, get the stuttering out, get the story potentially down. And just like when you're interviewing for jobs, you maybe don't do so well on the first three interviews, but by the fourth one, you know all the rebuttals, you know all the questions, and you're in and you're ready and confident to kind of tackle. So that's sometimes it's a recommendation I make with advisors, but you obviously
Yes.
did well too.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe I should have said this in the beginning. I did call like three people that I knew would go with me first,
Yeah,
but I also had been explaining it to my wife for like 6 months before that, and we had just
nice.
had our fourth baby,
Yeah,
and she doesn't work, and she's like, "Are you crazy? Are you really like leaving a good job and starting your own business?" And I had to get her on my side. Yes, she believes in me, but also the people that know you the best are the ones that push you the hardest to ensure that you're confident, ensure that you feel up for the task, and they know your mannerisms and they know how you're really feeling inside. And I knew when I convinced my stay-at-home mom of four wife that I could do this, and she looked at me and she said, I know you're going to do the best possible job for our family, and I believe in you. I was like, who's going to be harder to convince than that? You know what I mean? Like the person, she's got 100% of the risk and she says, I know you can do it. So maybe I did have, 5 to 6 months of those conversations with a pretty
yeah,
stiff critic, but the client conversation was easy compared to, I'm pretty sure our kids will eat next week, you know? Um,
great
so,
wife.
so that's, yeah, maybe that's something that I did have in my back pocket. I didn't think about that, but yeah.
So what were the most you're 14 months into this now.
hmm
Um, like what are the quick like top couple things that are the most refreshing about the independent side? And then maybe for other advisors that are considering, making a transition, like what should they be ready for that's maybe not as good?
Yeah. Refreshing stuff is, I mean, I could talk for the next hour about the refreshing stuff. Here's an example. I've always wanted to have social media marketing. Disclaimer, I haven't done a lot with it yet. I'm at month 14. That was one of my goals for 2024. We kind of still were in on-ramp mode. We've got a lot of new clients for the last 6 months. So I guess, and I'm doing we've done some certifications. So I guess I'm like uh justifying why I haven't done a lot of it yet, but I can, right? Like I've had all these conversations with the social media team. I can have a Twitter or X, whatever Elon wants to call it today. And I said, what can I post? And they said, we're going to look at what you post after you post it and tell you to take it down. You don't need pre-approval. My mind was blown, right?
Yeah.
Once again, identity. I have my own identity on social media and I have responsibility and they respect that responsibility. Am I going to do something that gets me in trouble and loses my client base on social media? Obviously not. And they respect that and they understand it. So the answer, yes, is what is refreshing. Can I do a seminar? Yes. Can I do example? I want to do a seminar at Wells Fargo. I never got it approved. Took 6 months. Give us the topic. Give us the script. Not that everything moves that fast in the financial world, but you go ahead and tell me if a 6 month lead time on putting a script out for a economic event is still going to be relevant 6 months from now. It isn't. I got asked by I manage an endowment for a nonprofit. They do a lot of good work locally. They came to me and they asked me right when I got here, they're like, hey, I don't know if you can do this. We've wanted you to sponsor an event in the past and you've never been able to do it. And I said, you're right. I've never been able to do it. But I want to make sure that now with my new role, I can do it. Called LPL. It was 2 months away before this event started. It was a gala, really cool one, a ticketed event, had a lot of people there. And they said, okay. And they hit me with this list of questions. Are you going to have a speech? No, I wasn't. are you going to have any branded material? And I was like, they did actually ask me for some branded like napkins and stuff. And I was like, my heart's sinking. I'm going, oh no, yes. I wanted to lie and say, no, I'm not going to have it because I wanted this thing to get approved. I was like, yeah, I actually do have branded material. And they said, okay, send us the logo that you're using on it. So, my shaky hand grabs the PDF of, I mean, the image, the JPEG of my logo and brings it into an email and hits send. And I'm thinking, oh God, there's no chance for this. They asked me how much I wanted to spend. They asked me if any existing clients would be there, all that stuff. So I sent it off. I called my contact at the nonprofit. I said, look, I just applied for approval on this. I'll let you know as soon as possible. What's the latest I could like say yes? I know this thing's in like a month and a half. What's the latest I could say yes? Like we kind of need to know in like the next month. And I said, I'm going to try my best. 2 hours later, I get an email that says, yeah, you can do it. And I said, from LPL. And I went, wait, you don't need anything else? And they're like, what else do we need? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just used to sacrificing my blood and like doing all the other things that I need to do. They just said, yeah. And I sent the payment off to um, the nonprofit for the sponsorship. And I was just like, that's all it took? To see the logo I'm using on napkins? Of course it makes sense, right? It makes perfect sense when you're on the other side of it. But we've had so much of that like operant conditioning to be afraid of the consequence that doesn't really
Oh,
exist. We're the scared dog. So that's refreshing. Um, Hearing yes with most questions is refreshing. But I have an important like disclaimer there too, which is it's both a blessing and potentially a curse. And let's use the topic of succession planning. Succession planning, if you want to do succession planning, you had one option at Wells Fargo, like their summit program, right? This is the valuation based on Wells Fargo's metrics. This is how long you can be in. There's a minimum time and a max amount of time, and these are the terms. I come here at LPL and they're like, oh, I said, what's the succession planning? Oh, we have a team that helps you with that. I said, yeah, but like, what are the terms? And I hear crickets on the other side of the line. They're like, what do you mean? What are the terms? I'm like, well, what do we have to do? And they're like, you negotiate that with the advisor. We don't have like preset terms for you. And if you're from a place where guardrails make you super comfortable, yes, the autonomy is helpful, but you can also be like, I don't know enough to forge my own path here. But as a person, you could probably tell I'm excited about those opportunities to learn. Yes, they're a little bit daunting, but at the end of the day, we're obviously going to do enough trial and error to come up with a better plan than what the guardrails, very thin, narrow-minded path that one firm would have for you. You could do it. So that's refreshing and also potentially daunting for new people. And that's how I'll segue into the other conversations. Like what wasn't that great about going independent was um you do have to figure a few more things out on your own, right? But you're compensated to figure more things out on your own, so that part's helpful. They have service teams. LPL's Linsco team especially is really good. I don't know exactly how great it would be if you were on the core channel or the RIA channel. It's probably not as good because we do have designated people. So actually our service got better than it was at Wells Fargo. But some things just aren't specified here. Like at a big firm, there's a protocol for everything, and here there isn't. And we've learned to operate like, hey, there's no protocol. Let's figure out our way and then go for approval on it, which I end up liking more. But in the beginning, that can be kind of tough. Is that instead of a pre-downloaded template, you have a blank Word document and you have to make it. And but I also think if you're an independent-minded person who wants the ability to develop and maintain your identity and likes the responsibility, you will grow to view that as an asset rather than as a deterrent. But in the beginning, it can be a little overwhelming for people that there's no guardrail on the plans that we have for you. This is not our blanket team agreement. You make your own team agreement. You make your own succession agreement. You can have revenue split however you want. You can have discretion and models however you want. You don't have to run it by us. I mean, if it's crazy, probably you'll hear from compliance. We obviously haven't yet. But those are the things. Other things that didn't necessarily line up with, I don't know if our expectation is right, but just like our previous experience, because I kind of tried to go into this with few expectations. But at the end of the day, you're going from one business whose goal is to make money to another business whose goal is to make money. Yes, they give you a bigger percentage of the pie and a lot more transparent, and you know what you're paying for. But you will eventually hear something that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like, hey, why can't we do X? And we haven't necessarily been super pleased by their answers, but obviously the conclusion is it wasn't as much of a margin as they wanted to make on something you were trying to do. You're not going to avoid that until you're your own RIA, right? And you have nobody over top of you, but then you'll be telling the people under you no for the same reasons, right? Once you're in charge of your P&L for the whole company, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So you'll just be the villain at that point in time. And I understand that from a business aspect. So if you're going into this thinking everything will be approved, there won't have to be an expense report, I'll do everything I want. No, but within reason, yes.
Awesome. I appreciate the honesty. I guess my last question for you, Jake. I mean, I feel like you were pretty organized throughout this process. You're an organized guy. For someone that's maybe considering whether it's Wells Fargo or another wirehouse or whatever, if they're just starting to think, man, maybe this isn't the place that I want to be long term. What are your recommendations for them?
Like where to go or when to go or why to go or what?
Just to make sure that they make the best decision possible, and maybe the questions that they should be asking themselves.
Yeah. So if you're at a wirehouse, the name is immaterial. If you're at a wirehouse and you go, maybe this isn't the best place for me, that's your brain developing the words for the way your body has felt for 5 years by now. I promise that. Like, this is not the first time you've had that thought. It's been a snowballing, accumulating thought that you finally put to words. And my answer to you is believe yourself. Don't discredit your own thoughts. You're right. Everywhere else in the independent space, and I say this because we really did talk to 6 different firms, and there's way more than that, right? They all are going to offer a better alternative. Every single one of them. They have to offer a better alternative. They have to offer a better alternative because they don't hold you in employment contracts. You own your book. You're free to go wherever you want. The way they keep you is by pleasing you, not by holding you hostage. So they have to be better or they're gone. Um, so if you're having those thoughts, absolutely think about it. Absolutely start to believe yourself and do the research. And I can say, I think that the reason why so many different independent firms exist is the same reason why we have, you know, what, 7,000 mutual funds on the QSIP ladder. One of them's right for somebody, right? Like there's not a fund out there that no one's invested in because even if it seems bizarre, it has a very, 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 it's important for somebody. It has a purpose. So go meet other firms. Go talk to people. Go use Corey. I wouldn't say use somebody like Corey. Use Corey because what you guys do connected us to all these other people, and we were able to have a very defined juxtaposition that was very helpful for us. And everybody does similar things, but there are variations in certain aspects of it, and those variations are weighted differently depending on what your priorities are. And we needed to know how it was different for each place. And I think that we ended up kind of narrowing it down between LPL, Raymond James, and another firm that clears through National Financial Service through Fidelity. And the biggest difference for us was the LPL seemed to offer the most autonomy in marketing and tech stack. And like Ray J seemed to be slowly becoming more corporate on that. And I still think they're a good firm for a lot of people. And I actually think their technology is superior in a lot of ways to like the tech stack at LPL, but you get like in the more third party stuff here. There's reasons why you would go to all of the places that we talked about, and all of them are going to be worth your consideration. And one thing that Corey told me to do, what she told me to do was go visit these home offices, and that was very, very valuable to me. Make time to go on at least one date before you get married. It's worth it. It's more than worth it. You gotta have a date before you get married. And maybe, if you're smart, more than one. But that was valuable. You get a feel for the culture differences and all those things. But we had We didn't go anywhere and think, oh, this would never work for us. We just chose the thing that we thought would work the best for us. And I totally think that I can't even begin to say which type of person should go to AJ versus which type of person should go to Commonwealth versus which type of person should go to LPL. I don't even want to define that. I want you as an advisor to define that.
I
So
love it. I remember with the home office visit thing, you had a brand new baby, and you said, Corey, my wife is going to kill me if I spend a day and a half away from the baby. And
yeah, in Texas.
I said, Jake, your wife is going to kill you if you pick the wrong firm and you have to spend another 4 months retransitioning again. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you finally listen. I'm glad you listened to me.
yeah. I had a 3-month-old baby. Oh no, how old was she? I had a 2-month-old baby. And somebody in my house was bound to get sick. And I was like, what's the latest I could get on a flight? And what's the earliest I get on a flight the next day? And I did it, and it was so, so, so worth it. And um, the doghouse was comfortable that week when I got back. Like it was fine, it was nice and warm in there. That she had cranked up the space heater. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, absolutely worth it. And if I could have done it with a brand new baby and 3 other kids, you need to do it, and it's so valuable because you will hear a lot about the culture and about the differences. And using an independent recruiter, I think, is beyond valuable because your job is to make us happy. That's how you get us back. That's how you get referrals. Your job is not to get us hired at any particular places to make us happy, and that is our interests are totally aligned in that regard. We want to be happy long term. You want us to be happy long term. You have to do that. You can listen, and we did talk to the employee recruiters from each individual place too, to hear what they had to say. And I will say I think they were all pretty good, but they have a different spin on things. They promise some things that they don't really have the power of delivering, but that's part of the game.
Well, I appreciate it, Jake. It's obvious you're super pumped up about your move and how you're serving clients. I love it. I love to hear about all the new growth. I know you just told me you came in front of a few acquisition opportunities already, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So I'd love to have you back for a 3-year review to talk about how things have changed. But congratulations again, and I really appreciate the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I know I can go off on long tangents, but hopefully it was transcribable for you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to hear more, my contact information is all over my YouTube channel, my podcast, and my website, CoreyWhalen.com. Or just reach out to me on my phone number, which will be right at the bottom of this screen. I appreciate the time. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks.